Dornbusch download 136, new location. We thought we'd just mix it up. Andrew and, of course, Rod. Rod, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
And Rod, you're looking a bit tired. Big night last night.
Up all night, analysing the budget. Exciting stuff,
I was going to say, thanks for clarifying what you were actually up to last night. On the budget front, there were some interesting things, certainly relating to the banks, and I'll talk about the banks in a minute. But, another thing that, especially with 1 in 4 of our clients being self-funded retirees, is around sort of the whole, not so much affordability, but trying to get extra money into super and downsizing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, one of the proposals is self-funded retirees or retirees in general, essentially. If they're 65 or over, they can look at downsizing out of their family home, as long as they've held it for a 10-year period, and it gives them the opportunity to each put $300,000 into their super funds, which essentially puts it in a tax-free zone that they can draw on, a tax-free income, and also the earnings in the super fund is tax-free as well. So I must say that all these are proposals, Andrew, so until they're legislated, they don't come into play, but that potentially for retirees, it is an attractive proposal.
And not that we give tax advice here, but let's just pretend that we do for a moment, generally speaking. So you're in your principal place of residence, which should be considered CGT free. You shouldn't pay any tax on that when you sell it.
That's exactly right.
And so the proposal, not that we're tax agents, of course, and then you could actually, what you're saying is if the proposal is passed, you could roll $300,000 each into a super fund. So basically continuing that sort of low tax or maybe even no tax, particularly in your circumstances.
That's exactly right. It's $300,000 each out of the sale proceeds. And it's outside the caps, the superannuation caps that are in place for other money flowing into super. So it's outside of that. So that's an important part as well. The other restriction, I suppose, is, and we've spoken about this before, is there's a $1.6 million cap that you can put into a retirement income stream tax-free. So those caps are still in place. The retirees have still got to keep within that 1.6 mil.
So say I live in Sydney, and what did we say the median house prices in Sydney?
A lot.
1.2 million. So we're basically saying you could unlock a fair bit of that value. But equally so, if I'm a young person and I'm trying to get into that 1.2 million market, the budget also had some mechanisms there to help them. What were some of those? For
potential new homeowners, they've brought in a proposal where it's run through the superannuation system. So, say for example, a young couple looking to purchase their first home, they can both put in up to $15,000 per year into their super fund, salary sacrifice it on top of their employer contributions. So it gets taxed at 15% on the way in and gets taxed 15% while it's in there, just like a normal superannuation fund. And then when they go to buy their first home, they can withdraw it out and get a 30% tax rebate. So a lot of the times they will get it out very tax effectively.
So that's, again, that really helps address in some way that affordability because, again, if we're saying the median house price in Sydney is 1.2 million, might take an average couple 8 to 10 years outside of super to be sort of saving for that deposit. So, that's a bit of a positive. What were some of the negatives, say for banks as an example in the budget? What did you see there?
Well, the banks, like, whether you like banks or don't like banks.
We love banks here at Dornbusch.
We love banks. Obviously there's been a levy imposed on the banks. It's all about funding the NDIS in the budget because the NDIS came in but it wasn't fully funded, and now the government's trying to address that issue, and one of the ways to do it, good profits from the big four banks, but essentially put a levy on the banks, and now the NDIS will be fully funded.
And it raises about $6 billion over the next 4 years. But from the point of view of the reality, though, mate, is that the banks, even though it's a levy on the banks aren't going to pay it. It's going to be those of us with mortgages, and you'll probably find your mortgage will go up somewhere between 0.12 and 0.15%, which doesn't sound like a lot. But nevertheless, it should be the banks that are paying it. They made $30 billion after tax profit last year. So this levy is about 5% of their profit. So, this argument that's going to make banks weaker, and it's just a lot of rubbish. But nevertheless, the banks will still, you would expect, just pass that cost straight on to consumers. Some of the other things we picked out of the budget, that $20,000 small business write-off is still in place. So if you've got a website that you need built, I understand, what's the name of that mob that...
Is it
1-800... No,
One,
it's 1300 Web Pro. Give James and Brendan a call. They'll look after you. Thanks, guys. Also, and we've only just heard about this one, it's in essence a crowdfunding or crowdsourcing mechanism. So we'll talk a bit more about that next week once we've done a bit of research. But certainly the stuff we've heard about seems really interesting, in particular for small investors. Or if you have a business that you're trying to get up, and a lot of the rigorous reporting and so forth, if the proposal is as it seems, it should be much better for them as well to more easily raise money. What else? I think it's probably the main takeaways. Probably the only other thing just relates to the average bear, if I can put it that way. We're all going to pay more tax. So, from the point of view of it, retail's in a bit of a hole at the moment. We saw the retail sales figures that came out yesterday were weaker than expected, significantly weaker. And yet we're actually all going to be paying more tax, not by much, but so it's a strange old budget. I heard commentary from an esteemed commentator just before that said it was a right-wing government delivering a left-wing budget, and I think that sort of sums it up on the nose. It's going to be interesting to see what the Labor Party response to this one is.
Good point, but one of the benefits of that is you would think a lot will get legislated and go through the Parliament. So
it was, I think, a budget, and again, I understand there was a well-known commentator who made commentary on Watch Win News, talking about that, saying that it was great politics, but was it such great policy, in particular around the budget, around the banks and so forth. Anyway, only time will tell.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Anyway, that's us, Dornbusch Download 136 done. Till next week. Thank you.
Bye.